to talk about a game today.
It's been a while since we've done that now, hasn't it? But we're back. So, if you watch this channel, then you must surely know about my Twitch, right? Right? Well, if you don't know, please follow. But recently, we did a game on stream called Condemned Criminal Origins, and oh my god, I love this game. So right after playing it, I knew I had to talk about it. So without further ado, let's get into why Condemned Criminal Origins is a fantastic, intimate, and organic horror game. By the way, there will be spoilers for this game, so I highly recommend that you play first. Developed by Monolith, which is funnily enough the same people that did Fear, Condemned would be the first launch title to the Xbox 360. Blending elements from crime movies like Silence of the Lambs and Seven, Condemned would follow the story of Ethan Thomas, a detective in the Serial Crimes Division in Metro City. While investigating another crime scene, Ethan winds up being blamed for the deaths of 2 police officers that were with him. What follows through the entire story is a downward spiral of trying to find out who the suspect is and who he will go after next. So strap in, because this is going to be a long one. So our game starts off with our protagonist, Special Agent Thomas, heading to the crime scene of the serial killer. Right off the bat, you can tell the city is already going down the toilet with the trash and decay littering the buildings and streets. From the information we gather from white policemen, we can infer that the crime rate has only been getting worse through the city.
God, why do they always have to kill in such maggot-infested dumps? Why can't they pick a nice spot without addicts and gang members for once? Someplace not so damn dark.
Something you may notice when playing this game is that the graphics are a little wonky, but where this could be seen as a bad thing in some other games, I think that the visuals help with the tone that this game is going for. However, look how white everyone's shoulders are. Fucking tonk ass. Anyway, when we reach the crime scene, oh my god. Oh god. Why are there child mannequins? So here we are introduced to one of the more unique mechanics of the game. Detectiving. From here, we can learn how to be a junior detective. It's very boring. Yeah, the whole detective thing is very underutilized in this game. All it really amounts to is taking pictures and samples and listening to your lab partner explain shit.
Processing image. That's it. The same mark.
Just when things were getting started, we are quickly interrupted by Porky sniffing out a suspicious cigarette. Because the plot demands it, we are required to go check it out, and we're off!
Agent Thomas, Officer Becker. I don't know if they're on a new drug or either. Thomas Dickinson, there's one coming your way. Addict amped up on something.
It is right around here that we learn of the game's arresting mechanic. There isn't one! So as Rosa explains, everyone is crazy and becoming violent, and will pretty much just attack you on sight. I think now is a great time to talk about the game's AI. The enemies in this game are out to get you by any means necessary. It is common for you to see these guys hiding behind walls, just waiting to pounce. For weapons, they will literally rip shit off the wall and just use whatever they can to attack you with. The enemies are always moving and interacting with each other. Sometimes they'll even fight each other, which helps create this atmosphere that everyone is going crazy. It's great. So continuing through the level, we voluntarily give our gun to the suspect. And we have to resort to melee combat. Another thing that's interesting about Condemned is that it's very melee focused, which is quite uncommon for a genre like this. Yeah, there are guns in the game, but they come far and few between. And even if you find a gun, it's either hidden or already being used against you by an enemy. You don't reload guns either. However many bullets you have in a gun is what you get. So yes, that shotgun is awesome, but once it runs out, you better switch to a pipe fast. So the suspect took our gun. How will we defend ourselves now? Well, like a goddamn genius, we take a piece of pipe off the wall and we start bashing heads. Combat is simple. Left mouse button to swing the weapon, right mouse button to block. And all you need is enemies take some hits to kill, so you gotta master blocking at the right time. So rather than it being like a holding down kind of block, it's like a swift motion that deflects any incoming attacks. Sorta like a parry. It gets layered when enemies will use their momentum of getting hit against you for an attack, or when enemies will fake a hit, leaving you exposed when you panic block. It's another one of those things that adds a sort of lifelikeness to the enemies, and more of a complex feel to combat. So as you saw, I picked up a piece of pipe off the wall. Weapons range from pipes, to pipes, to pipes, to even pipes. Well, okay, there are a lot of pipe-like weapons in this game. But there are sledgehammers, axes, 2x4s, and mannequin arms. Each weapon has 4 different stats to consider: damage, speed, block, and reach. The plus and minus indicator correlates to your weapon's current stats, so a fire axe is stronger than a large pipe, but the speed is lacking. So you might be wondering, why am I talking about the combat so much? Well, you see, the combat really helps you get engaged with the game. This is where a lot of the intimate horror comes in. Everything is up close and personal, and the game makes you feel that way. Also, it's fun. Shut up! So when we get to the suspect, he spouts some weird shit, shoots the meatloaf man with our gun, and then he throws us out of a building. What follows through the rest of the story is Ethan trying to catch the person who framed him for the murders. So now I want to talk about the horror. So I mentioned before that this game is an intimate and organic horror game. I'll talk about the intimate now. So, when going through the game, everything is very engaging, from the sounds of people upstairs to the shuffling of shelves in the other room. What helps is that the soundtrack is ambient, which helps give this feel that you're going through a condemned building. Also, this game does this thing I like, where when something ominous or scary happens, it doesn't play a loud noise to alert me that I'm scared. Instead, it keeps everything subtle, and lets you stay engaged the whole time. So here, this barrel rolled. It's not a terrifying thing, but it definitely helps create the feeling that you're not alone in the building. The scene would have been a little ruined if the stupid violin noise was added.
What the fuck is this?
I love these beginning levels though. They help create this great atmosphere, especially with how silent everything is. It always makes you feel as though something's behind the corner. I also love the enemies. Like I said in the gameplay section of this video, they will do anything to get the upper hand on you. Also, they are crazy homeless people. In what game are you allowed to beat up homeless people? I will give you 5 seconds to name them. Go. No, you cannot. What's cool is that as you go through the game, the enemies change to start getting grosser and more distorted. When you reach the outside levels, you encounter these guys with packs on their back, like they're prepared. But with how distorted and gross the enemies get, it always stays grounded in reality. Well, except for one instance, but I'll get to that later. Even when the paranormal shit starts happening, it always still maintains this sense that it's in the real world. In the sewer portion of the game, you encounter these small, light, fidgety people. While it is a more out there design for these enemies, it still makes sense. For instance, these scraggly guys only appear in this section of the game, because it makes sense for them to be here. From the environment, you can make the conclusion that they're living down here in these small shanty towns. You can even go as far as to say that they're down here because they wanted to get away from the crime that's happening in the streets, but in turn went mad themselves. What I love about these enemies, however, is just how quiet they are. There are a lot of times where they'd sneak up on me and I just lose my shit. Certain items trigger certain enemies, exactly. Die! I think here represents the organic aspect of this game. What I mean by organic is that the horror in this game never feels scripted. It's all in the gameplay. There are jump scares, but the scares have a lot of build-up and never feel cheap at all. The horror really comes out when you're by yourself in this decaying atmosphere, never really sure when the next enemy will come out next. And when the enemy does appear, they make themselves known with their breathing or walking, with no audio cue at all. And that's the thing with the enemies. They never feel like they're waiting to be spawned in. It always feels like they're coming after you, and it creates this tension and suspense in every area in the game. What I also love is that Condemned never explains anything to you. There's no big scene where a big guy is like, hey, everyone's crazy because I'm unleashing a poison on the town. I don't know. All of it's very vague, but never to the point where you're just confused all the time. A subplot that illustrates this the best is the birds. You collect dead birds in this game. Don't ask me why Ethan does this. He's a pretty weird guy. Actually, the birds let you unlock concept art in some videos in the making of the game. It's honestly a treat. But between every loading screen, there's a subplot going on between the city police and the deaths of birds. Later through the game, they link the rate of dead birds in an area to the crime rate, but they never explain why the birds are dying or why the crime rate is going up. I love how they're just connected somehow. It really leaves a lot to the imagination and creates this great world bending and mystery behind everything. It's just in the background, and that's just the cherry on top. A good game to compare this to is its sequel, Condemned 2 Bloodshot. They explain everything. All of it. In the first level. They explain why the people are going crazy, why the birds are dying. All of it. It's so fucking weird going from Condemned Criminal Origins, a game where one of the enemy introductions is this. To Condemned 2 Bloodshot, a game where the boss is Lollipop Chainsaw Girl. There's absolutely no subtlety, and that's what ruins the game for me. If anything, Condemned 2 is its own video, so I'm just gonna get back to Condemned 1. Oh yeah, Bart's department store. In the last chapter, we discovered that the killer from the last chapter got his mannequins from, you guessed it, a department store. This chapter is everything that is right with the game. I think it highlights the best horror that this game can offer. For starters, the music, scratch that, ambience, is very good. Oh my god, that is fucking brilliant. Anyway, the ambience to me always sounded like this ghost of an old 1950s mall. It's just me because I hear it. Continuing on, you always feel like you're being stalked by these mannequins that live here. As you go through the level, they completely destroy the basic enemies, and even give you welcome cards. It's just then, when you least expect it, they just start walking around. What I love about this level is how it makes you feel like you don't belong here, because this is their territory. Normally throughout the game, it feels like vagrants are trespassing, but here, you are the trespasser, and they hate you. Condemned takes full advantage of the areas it gives us to create maximum amount of horror that can be achieved. But with that, it knows when to be conservative. These mannequin enemies only pretend to be mannequins like 2 times in the entire level, but I guarantee that you will walk into a room filled with these guys and think at least one of them is a person. And then when you least expect it, they pop out of the corner. It's genius. This honestly sends shivers down my spine. This is also part of the game where the psychological elements come into play. Like I said before, Condemned is very conservative, so these paranormal events have a greater impact on you, since they aren't happening all the time. Unfortunately, this is where the game starts to diminish in quality. We find the body of the serial killer that killed the woman in the first chapter. Yeah, no, this isn't the killer of this body. This dude is. So after you identify him as the OG serial killer, you're kind of left wondering, like, it feels a little misdirection-like when the first level we thought this is the guy, but no, he isn't the guy. This is the guy that killed the girl. Who is this guy? Who is this guy? So yeah, this is where the dippage happens. Now, I feel like I should talk about the game's issues, and there is quite a few. Throughout this video, I've said that this game is very intimate, and the combat is very good and weighty, but I neglected to mention that there is a one-hit kill weapon. The taser is a cheap thing that has no right to be here. I think the addition of the taser is fine, but it has infinite ammo with an 8-second timer, and enemy encounters are spread apart, so you will always have the taser on you. Oh my god.
Within 8-second timer.
So you will always have the taser on you.
In the library level, you even get a fucking upgrade for it, which automatically puts them in a stunned state. At least Condemned 2 had the decency to give the taser only 3 shots for dire situations. Also, after Bart's department store, we go to the library, and this is easily the worst level in the entire game. In this part, we have Rosa, our lab assistant, follow us around, and this level is a lot of, whoa, a gap that you can jump across. Take a detour. Also, Rosa looks like a bag of potatoes with dull eyes, and it's creeping me out. Also, we get these enemies that are very contorted and disturbing, but what made the sewer guys and even the mannequin people cool was their placement in the area. The sewer guys made sense and used their environment to their advantage, same to even a greater degree the mannequins. These guys are just kind of placed here to be placed here. Like, it's a library, so there really isn't a lot of sense for these disgusting guys to be here. The library isn't, like, disgusting or, like, abandoned. It was literally just recently burnt down. Also, they don't really do anything different from the other sewer guys. They have the same moveset, they move the same, it's just, you know, a reskin, basically. So we were at the library to look up info on one of the serial killers on Ethan's case, because it turns out that this guy is a serial killer killer. He's a serial killer squared. Yeah, that was an advanced joke. So, they need to find info on the serial killer that's still alive. The torturer. We get our shit, and we head to the school that he used to go to. Right here is another level I sorta dislike. The enemies from the library here, or at least I think they're the same. I don't know. These guys kind of look like Maynard James Keen. What makes it worse is that there's this comically fat lunch lady that sounds like Miss Piggy stalking you. And she doesn't even have, like, a cool boss fight. You kind of just, shoot. Yeah, she's dead. We find a dude, get some info, and we're off to an orchard. The orchard is where the game picks up again. And we actually get to do some cool detective shit, where we gotta find clues, but we have to follow this trail of words. It's awesome. The torturer arrives, but he's dead. So we pose as him when the Uber killer comes? Yeah, it's odd.
Stop right there, criminal scum! Nobody breaks the law on my watch!
However, lo and behold, Van Horn, I trusted you, no! Now, the last level is really fucking weird. Actually, the final boss is really weird. We go through the orchard, but these ninja guys who have been showing up in cutscenes and in the background are now enemies.
One gang kept wanting me to join because I'm pretty good with the bow staff.
And the final boss is one... I don't know. Before we even go through the level, Van Horn instructs us to
Destroy it. It has caused all this madness. Go, kill it now.
So I guess this is the it that we have to kill. I hate this final boss. It's not hard or anything, it's just really out of place. Throughout the game, he's been seen doing things, but he never really does anything at all. He doesn't interact with the world, which is kind of why I'm kind of mad on the boss. After we do some surgery, we return to the barn and we get to the world's most intense decision. Do we kill serial killer, or do we spare him? It doesn't matter at all. It's completely useless. The ending isn't affected or anything, which is a bummer. This game is really fucking good. Yeah, it's buggy in some areas, but the game delivers its horror phenomenally. I'm glad to have played this when I could, and however, the story is very meh. The later sections aren't really, anything to write home about either. But overall, it's an amazing and intimate organic horror game. And I feel like it should be a great example for when people want to design games, or especially horror games that center around combat, because it definitely creates tension even if you have a gun. It's amazing. Definite must play. I had fun today. Follow my Twitch.